Alright, it looks like our runner is ready. So, ZELLLOO, tell us all about Radiant Silvergun.
Thank you, Sporadic. Hi, everyone. I am ZELLLOO. I was just off the heels of Bomberman 64, and now we get into a completely different genre with Radiant Silvergun. So this is a very experimental vertical scrolling shmup by Treasure back in 1998, back in the day, originally for the STV arcade hardware and ported to Sega Saturn. But thankfully, in the years passing, we've had several digital releases, and it looks like we're going to be playing on the recent PC re-release on Steam from just a couple years ago. So this is the category right here is a scoring sword only. As you can tell, this is a shmup. We're just going to be going for high score here. But sword only is very interesting because this game normally has 7 different weapons, and we're only going to use one of those for the entire game. The very it's the sword, and it's very self-explanatory, but the mechanics of it are going to be really neat. A little bit of info about the runner and the game itself. I knew of VTF-Ino's runs back in when he did his original Superplay videos back in like the mid-2000s, late 2000s. So I'm actually excited to see how this run has evolved over the years and any kind of other high-scoring strategies because, like I said, you're normally supposed to have access to 7 different weapons, and using just the sword has an incredibly high level of play. So it looks like we're going to get started setting up our settings here. We're going to go into arcade mode. Due to the way this game was designed, you can have an arcade mode or the original Saturn mode, which adds a few extra things. We'll get into that as we start. So the main mechanics of Radiant Silvergun right here, we have colored enemies, which is a very common mechanic. There are 2 types of different chains in this game. You can chain enemies that are the same color, like we currently have a chain of all reds right now. But there's also a secret chain ability where if you kill a red, blue, and then a yellow, then you activate a secret chain, and you can continue that secret chain by continuing to hit yellow enemies. So the normal chains give you points based on the like strength and density of the enemies, but the secret chains are consecutive 10,000 points every time. So as you can see, we're using just the sword. The sword is a really neat weapon. You normally have 3 different attack buttons, and combining those buttons gives you the different attacks. In the case of holding all 3 buttons down, you get the sword, and you can swing that in several different directions. You can hold it behind you in the direction opposite of where you're moving. So it's a very high learning curve to be able to use an attack like this for the entire game in a shmup. But VTF-Ino has many years of experience with this, and I am very confident they will provide many good scoring opportunities right here. So we're going to concentrate mostly on red enemies in this section. Shmups are very heavily routed for scoring, and we just know ahead of time what enemies we want to kill. So, having not seen this run in a long time, though, I will probably be very surprised by some decisions that can be made. So we'll see what happens here. So there's a couple other things to note while we're doing these simple chains right here. We have a gauge in the top left, as you can see, that fills whenever you sword away pink bullets. Whenever you sword away 10 pink bullets, you get access to the hyper sword, which is basically your standard clearing bomb attack as you would have in other shmup games. So it does a lot of damage, clears everything around you, and makes you invincible. So there are definitely points where we need to have that ready, especially since we don't have a bomb on command. That is our only chance of like any kind of safe situation. Points are actually very unique in this game because as you destroy enemies, those points that you grab are actually basically experience points. You can see the level A, B, and C at the top that's kind of flickering above the number of lives, and that is your weapon level. And your different attacks get stronger, get different effects as the level goes up. In the case of the sword, that just means your attack power is going to go up here, and the others are not as important. But experience routing, like with the points, is actually very important, so we hit enough thresholds to be able to do enough damage. So the boss fights, we're going to do a couple things here. We're going to graze for as many points as possible. I believe, if I remember right, there are invisible time limits on these bosses, and they will explode on their own after a certain amount of time. So in that amount of time, we want to graze for as many points as possible. If you don't know what grazing is, basically you are on the very edge of an attack hitbox with your ship sprite, and you kind of get a small flickering effect. You can kind of see like the small flickers, and you're getting points when you're grazing attacks, enemies, bullets, etc. And the other part of this for the bosses, before the time limit expires, we want to destroy every destructible point of this boss. The bosses have a destruct bonus, and if you get 100%, then you get a perfect, and you get quite a bit few more points than you would than if you just went directly for the main part of the boss. So it's a lot of managing just the different, just a lot of different situations for these bosses, because they're all very unique. This game has a ton of boss fights, by the way. Assuming that we're going to play every stage in the game, considering the estimate's a 115, we're going to see no less than 20 bosses in this run. There are a lot of bosses in this game. So any of you familiar with one of Treasure's previous games, Alien Soldier, this is a lot like that, but in a shmup form, where there are stages, but a lot of this game is managing boss fights. So, getting a lot of good points, just kind of grazing against the main cannon right here. Your hitbox, in typical bullet hell fashion, is a very, very small spot. But everything in this game is a one-hit KO. The effects of that wouldn't be too bad in the context of continuing the run. You do lose your chain if you die, but you don't really have power-ups like you would in a typical shmup, so it's not too bad to get back on track here. So our hyper meter's now full, so we're going to use that to kind of clear off the boss and kill it before the time runs out here. And we should have a full destruct bonus. Oh, actually, we missed one part, so we got 90%. So, I'll talk a little bit about story in this game. Story is a little interesting because of we do the stages in a non-chronological order. So we actually start with stage 3. And if we're going to be doing the full game, stage 2 will be next, then 4 through 6, and then finally back to 1. So if the story of this game is rather neat, just to kind of see things unfold from a non-chronological perspective. So it looks like we're going to be sticking with mostly red chains here. Like we said earlier, the routing for every level is very specific, and we know when to switch chains. And it's usually nice to start with red chains in most of these stages, because if you can get most of the red chains, and then for a bunch of yellows at the end, you can switch to a secret chain by getting the red, blue, yellow, and then continue secret chains to the end of that stage. So we're going to go ahead and ditch the hyper sword here because we want to be able to use sword strings. Whenever you have the full meter, your next push of the sword is a forced hyper sword. We don't want that here, so we're just going to ditch it. There's going to be a lot of grazing in this section here. You also get weapon bonuses depending on specific conditions per weapon. And the weapon bonuses for the sword are you're holding it out and you just kind of drag it over an enemy for a while and do damage. So we're just going to hang out here, just kind of graze and rack up points. Just have to be very careful not to get blasted by a missile on the side. And just watch for the giant laser beam. このゲームの重要な稼ぎであるウェポンボーナスについて解説させていただきます。このゲームには7つの武器に別々の条件を達成することに1万点のウェポンボーナスを獲得することができます。Yeah, Ino's making this look a lot easier than this game really is. This game is incredibly hard on a casual play because your weapons are going to be very under-leveled playing casually, since you're typically not trying to chain for points, and thus things take a lot longer to kill and are generally a lot more dangerous. But if you know the safe spots and you know how to level your weapons up, this game is a lot more manageable in that regard. 楽に進める場面でもウェポンボーナスを獲得するために通常のソードを使うことがスコア稼ぎでは重要になっています。また、道中ではチェーンボーナスに関係のない敵に対しても So I talked a little bit about the stages, how we're playing them out of chronological order. Each stage has up to 5 parts. So this is stage 3C right now. So we're going to be playing 2 other sections, and then we can move on to the next stage. But the stages themselves are quite long early game. Like each of the early stages alone is like 15 minutes. Definitely one of the long.
Up this game. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was looking up this game because I thought I remembered it being on Dreamcast, but I was wrong. It's on the Saturn, right? But apparently, it's also available on the Switch.
Yes, so we have recent ports of this game, which is really great. So back when the original release, this was a JP only release back in the day. I actually had to buy a copy off eBay a few years back. And it was not cheap, as you can imagine, because this was a very limited release. I think only about 60,000 copies were made, and they were only available for Saturn. So this was a JP arcade only and Saturn only. But I remember Xbox Live did get an official port of this for 360, and then we've gotten more recent ports of this as well on PC, Switch. So it's a very accessible game now, which is very nice.
So nice.
I think you might have imagined Dreamcast because Ikaruga, the spiritual successor to this game, did have a Dreamcast port.
That might be it. You know, there were so many unique games on the Dreamcast I thought I remembered, and it has such a cool name.
Yeah, it's a great name. It's a really cool game. I'm more partial to Ikaruga myself, but watching super plays of this game in particular is just such a treat. So I think we're going to just keep Sword out. We've got our Hyper Sword filled. And we're just going to just get the secret chain right here. So, like I said earlier, every time you manage to get a secret chain and you can keep chaining it, every three yellow enemies will give you successive 10,000 point bonuses. So we're getting quite a bit of points, more than if we were just get only reds. This fight's a little scary here because those pillars that you see around you, they do provide cover, but they also do have active hitboxes, so they will destroy you if you touch them.
Seems like it might be a little bit of flashing lights warning.
Yeah,
do you agree with that?
I would agree with that. There's a few points, so just look away as needed, just take care of your eyes.
Alright, so chat, flashing lights warning for this game.
The game style is also very interesting from a graphical perspective because it uses a mix of sprites and polygon enemies. Like, it's just that cool 2D, 3D mix that works out really well. So, unfortunate death right there, but like I said, deaths don't really cost too much, especially when you're playing sword only. So we're just going to keep trying to graze for a while. It's just safer to just stand next to the boss than try and actually use the pillars for cover, because that just kind of increases your risk of blowing yourself up on those pillars. I would imagine we're probably keeping that one turret alive just so we can probably pull some pink bullets from it later and grab a hyper sword just as we're about to end the fight. But we'll see what happens. This game also has a fantastic soundtrack, by the way, and I really do highly recommend listening to the whole thing. There's a nice arranged soundtrack too. Some cool variations. Okay, so it looks like we're not going to take a hyper sword into the next area. We're just going to finish out once we kill the main body here. So the sword itself, it actually is pretty generous in terms of like where it hits for something that you have to strike at close range, but it's also incredibly difficult to actually control. Like I said, if you drag the sword behind you, the angle is opposite the way you're moving. So especially once you have like a hyper sword charged up and you don't want to tap the sword anymore and you're just kind of dragging it behind, it's very tricky to be able to hit stuff with it and not bump other things when you're trying to chain specific enemies. That health management is also perfect. You can see just that tiny dot of health in the lower left corner.
最短の距離で回ってくるだけな
So
ので
one more tap will kill.
利用してる形になります。
はい、お見事です。
お見事です。はい、100% きましたね。はい。
So nice 100% right there. So 100% kill gets you the full 100,000 point destruct rate bonus. So this is the last part of stage 3 right here. So we're gonna grab mostly red enemies here, and I think we will switch to a secret chain later if I remember right. It might just be all reds here.
今回赤、青、黄色と1個ずつくるんで赤だけ潰しに行きます。
ここがうまく決まるか。あ、大丈夫。
Interestingly, the ships right here, like the big ships, do count as reds. So that's why it's ideal to stay on reds here. We're gonna get rid of these turrets. And then we can use a hyper sword a little bit later here. Here, you can see like just mastery of the sword right here, just kind of wiggling back and forth to get damage.
今度は外側のミサイルを撃ってくるんですが、ミサイル撃つ前に倒してしまえばいいという形でしっかり処理をしていきましょう。はい。で、ここの後に
On top of everything else, it's a really fun run to watch.
ハイパーソードをぶち込み。
It's just super exciting.
Yeah.
ね。
The ship getting up there and just like wiggle the sword and everything's gone. Let's go.
上に上がれですね。もう見たまま通り上に上がってるから。
Alright, so this is the final boss of stage 3 right here. And then we're gonna have just a slight bit of a cutscene.
このゲームがステージ 3A から始まって。
So it looks like we are playing the full game. So there's two versions of this game. There's the normal arcade mode, which skips out on a lot of story things, and you would only play either stage 2 or stage 4. You would not play both, and then whichever one you complete, you would go straight to stage 5 afterwards. In this version, since we're playing the full, you'll see all the story related things. So we saw one of our other Silvergun characters, a guy, in the top right for just a brief moment at the beginning of this boss fight, and we're going to be playing both stage 2 and stage 4 together. So like I said, this is a long shmup. This is with having to play both stage 2 and stage 4, this run is almost an hour, especially sword only.
It looks like our estimate is actually an hour and a quarter.
前の2520年の話が回想シーンとして進みます。今回は4面ルートのスコアアタック。
We're just gonna graze for more points here. Just really pick it up. You can see all of our A, B, and C levels are all at 13. Like in a casual playthrough, so if you wouldn't be chaining, you'd probably be like level 6 or 7 if I remember right. Like you'd actually be pretty weak. So getting to 13 by this point is quite strong because if I remember right, the max cap for levels in this game is 33. So we're already almost halfway there for all of our weapon types. And like I said, the sword just gets a whole bunch of extra power, which is fine with us.
Yeah.
ここで時期狙いが来るかどうかでも当然かすり手残り少し変わりますね。
If only that turret could just rotate another 10 degrees, but it's trying.
タイミングは完全に多分把握されているでしょう。
It's like you get back here.
いや、SEC さんこれ初心者の方が始めていくには何を意識したらいい？
We're pretty much just waiting and just kind of grazing up for points. So, and we've got a small cutscene in between. So, Sporadic, if there's anything else you want to say right now, this would be a perfect time.
Sure. Well, I do want to remind everybody that we are here raising funds for Doctors Without Borders. Doctors Without Borders offers medical humanitarian assistance to people based solely on need, irrespective of race, religion, gender, or political affiliation. Your teams of doctors, nurses, logisticians, and other frontline workers are often among the first on the scene when people's lives are upended by conflict, disease outbreaks, or natural or human-made disasters. The decision to respond is based solely on their independent assessment of medical needs. They work to ensure their teams can reach people in need without restriction and provide aid directly. If you feel that you are able to donate, you type !donate in chat. You'll be taken right to where you can donate to Doctors Without Borders through the RTA in Japan donation website. And also, you can donate towards incentives. There is one for the very next run coming up to choose the top 3 sorry, to choose the skins, in-game skins for the window kill race, and the top 3 will be featured, and and it's amazing. They're all based on operating systems. So we have Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 95, Mac 11, Ubuntu, Mac Classic, Windows 10, and Windows 11. You can put your donation towards any of those to have them show up in that race. It's going to be a 3-person race.
Thank you, Sporadic. So I actually have to make a correction. This is my fault. It turns out we are actually playing the arcade mode, not the original Saturn mode. So we got to take our pick between stage 2 and stage 4. And because of that, since we're only going to be playing one of those stages, Eno went ahead and picked stage 4 since there's a lot more opportunities to score in this stage. So that's my fault, but that's fine. So, like I said, the stages are in chronological order. So stage 2 would have been a flashback to where we would see just kind of how the story began. Because stage 1, we'll get to that when we get there. But stage 4 takes place right after stage 3, so we're just kind of exploring the area, returning to Earth. Picked up a whole bunch of red chains in that level, as you could see. It was pretty much ideal to just go all red there. So stage 4 is also divided into 5 sections here, so it's also quite lengthy. And the next boss in particular is going to be very interesting because you're not really intended to fight it sword only.
そしてこの浮遊している雑魚敵です。これ動きランダムです。
So we're just going to stay in the corner here, just kind of avoid all that in the middle. As long as you just dodge the lasers coming from the ship, then you're safe in the corner there.
問題のこのミサイルを撃ってくるこのランダムの動きが非常に厄介です。
It's really interesting at point blank range. These diagonal lasers just barely miss you.
で左右から来るメテオ、この位置もランダムです。
Yeah, just incredibly precise.
いや、それは大丈夫です。
Level's looking good too. We're already at level 17.
はい、このボス戦非常に BGM がいいですね。こちらは崎本仁さんが、作曲されておりまして。 FF12 や
Have you played this game on Saturn before?
I do. I have my copy, and it's been a while since I've pulled it out. But that is an arcade accurate port there, so it is a very good version of the game. But the re-releases also just help with the quality of life and such, get nice overlays and everything, and just probably a little bit of the lag is slightly reduced.
Because graphically this is gorgeous, and so I was wondering if you knew, since this is the PC version, how this matches up to the...
It looks to be about the same. I think maybe there might have been some smoothing out, but for the most part, this is pretty accurate to how it already looks in its original form. It's just Treasure was a fantastic company with getting the most mileage out of their hardware.
Yeah, Saturn was a fantastic system too.
大丈夫です。で、この爆発するミサイルについては相当正面。
The lingering explosions of these missiles is also a little bit scary, so Eno's being very careful to know where to detonate them, so they don't end up in a bad spot.
I think the commentator is talking about exactly
ボスに
that.
対しても加勢点を今数十点ですが取りました。そこで。
Yeah, playing treasure shmups is a very different beast from playing most other traditional shmups, because other traditional shmups usually have you don't have like color-coded chain systems, or there might not be very like super intricate scoring mechanics, but here treasure games take a very different approach in how you have to score them. Now, a lot of older, like other mechanics from other games carry over, like grazing, but just the way that you approach all these situations, especially since this game is a lot of boss fights. You spend probably 70% of this run in boss fights.
それなりのスコアになるので、狙っていかなきゃいけないんですが、このゲームエクステンド2回しかないですので、それがまた厳しいところですね。
Like, see, I'm pretty sure that's a pixel-perfect position to not be hit by any of those alternating shots while still being in a good spot to blow up the missiles ahead of you.
本当これ買ってやってみようっていう方は最初はエブリ100万でやった方が絶対いいですよ。はい。はい。
Like, just for some context on how good Eno is at shmups in general, I remember watching Eno's one-player, two-controllers runs of Ikaruga. some of those runs posted back in like the mid 2000s, late 2000s, are still records to this day.
青が真ん中ですね。はい。チェーンしっかりシークレットを取って赤をつないでる素晴らしいですね。お見事です。これなかなかやっぱりできない。
Like, Eno is just amazingly good at treasure shmups. So we're gonna go reds mostly here. I think we do switch to a secret chain at one point. But we're gonna pick up as many reds as possible right here. Carefully sorting away these electric barriers. It's funny because you're supposed to use like a shot type or such to like get them to collapse, but the sword does have enough of a hitbox to where you can smack them away without getting blown up yourself. But it's very tricky with timing, as you can see right there. Unfortunate death. Charging the hyper sword right there, using the blue turrets. Yeah, this really shows it right here. So we're going to use the hyper sword to just kind of blow past a whole bunch of them and get several red chains at the same time. So more red chains right here. I guess we're not going to be switching to secret here. So this is the fight that you're not really intended to do sword only because there's a barrier that shows up after this phase. But I don't know if we're going to do the old method or if there's a new method for getting around it. We're going to graze for just a little bit. But the old method, you would actually take a death while the barrier is coming down, and you'd actually be able to respawn just ahead of the barrier and be able to destroy everything that's beyond it because you normally wouldn't be able to hit him with the sword. So yeah, we take the death in just a very specific spot, and we can just get behind the barrier, we get to the back here, and just smack all the laser turrets, because otherwise we'd be stuck in a sword-only category. So, some good times for grazing.
What's the reason for not taking out this final turret?
Yeah, we just want to graze for a while. Just keep. You can see the points keep filling up because we're just grazing our hitbox.
Yeah, the scoring category.
Like I said, we do have to kill the parts at some point because it is an arcade game. Most arcade games don't let you just graze for forever. But we get what points we can and then we move on. And this fight is actually quite a bit easier, like even in a casual play, if you manage to get around the barrier, because as you can see at the very beginning of this phase, there were just a billion projectiles being fired and ricocheted into that small space, and just being able to just go to the top and avoid everything is so nice. It's very interesting that the barrier also counts for like grazing.
Because the chat has pointed out, they just passed a million.
A million, as Hib said.
Raised for Doctors Without Borders. So thank you very much to everyone who has donated, and you can donate now if you like. You can type exclamation point donate in the chat and donate to
Yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this fight, just because we're just getting grazing off the barrier where we can, and just kind of clearing out the... Thankfully, these enemies are a lot less scary once you at least get a couple out of the way so the lasers aren't overlapping. We actually clipped back inbounds into the barrier because we don't have to be on the outside anymore.
The boss fights. Well, in that case, this may be a good time to remind folks that if you are enjoying this lovely commentary from ZELLLOO, you too could be a lovely commentator for our English restream. All you need to do is type exclamation point form in the chat to be taken to the form to fill it out. And you should probably check out the schedule first and figure out which run you would like to volunteer to commentate for. You need to type exclamation point schedule in the chat for that. You can do that right now if you feel like it. We are accepting commentators throughout the marathon restream.
Alright, so this final phase of the fight right here is really neat because the turrets keep spawning in on the left and right side independently. So we took out everything on the left by using the pink bullets from the right turrets to be able to get Hyper Sword and just clear them out as fast as possible. Then we focused on the right side. So with all of them gone, then we can destroy the main turret and get our destruction bonus. Oh, getting a little too close right there and just smacking the turret with the hitbox. So we're down to 1 life right here. It's fine, like, we have continues, like, it is a home port, so inserting credits is not a problem. But I always like trying to 1cc when we can. 1 credit clear, for those not familiar.
Scramble for the 100 yen coins.
Imagine if you had to donate 100 yens for every credit you put in the... I'd probably be giving a few thousand yen in that case, because this game really is really hard casually.
Yeah, that would be a fantastic donation in something like that.
次でボスが自爆するのでギリギリまで減らしています。
A little more farming right here. So we'll talk about the roadmap coming up. So like I said, we're in stage 4 right now. This is the end of 4B. We have C, D, and E. And then because we're playing on normal mode, stage 5 is only going to have 1 section, as well as stages 6 and 1. So the rest of the run is actually going to go by pretty quickly once we finish the rest of stage 4 here. So starting with red chain, we got some blues. I think we'll be able to stay on blues here. So interestingly, hitting enemies without destroying them still does get you some points. So we're seeing some very tiny sword plays here. We're gonna just keep farming blue enemies for a bit. Because this is like one of the few stages in the game where blue enemies are actually pretty prominent. So it's good to chain off of them. Very precise positioning here to get those blues without tapping the bullets. Because we want to be able to activate our Hyper Sword at a very specific time.
いや、これはやっぱね、難しいですね、こんな綺麗にやるのね。さすがです。はい。で、今度は後ろから、前から来て、後ろから来ます。
The stage is actually deceptive on routing because it looks like on a first pass you'd want to go for a bunch of reds or yellows, but the blues actually end up being more beneficial for your score. Some good grazing right there in the corner while we're waiting to destroy stuff. And then we have just a final set of blues to finish off the stage here. So big reason why we want to chain blues through all of 4C. Great stage there. And now we have the worm. And I always love these little boss intro blogs. They're just so full of English, but they are so charming. So Dan564 right here has the attitude for gains. Yeah. So Dan564 is this giant worm, and just there are many parts to this to destroy if we want a 100% fight. So we're just going to take everything down piece by piece, but it's going to be a little tough with sword only because the hitbox is moving around, so the positioning is precise to make sure that we don't accidentally smack something.
I was really blown away by the precision throughout this run. Oh.
Yeah, unfortunate death. Like it's tough to manage. There's our 100 yen right there. So, like a typical feature of most arcade games is the number of credits you've used to continue. You can see is the ones digit. So only a 1 right now. This is fine. This is a interesting boss in that there are several phases to this fight. Because the worm will roll up into a ball right here, and these pillars do have active hitboxes, so you have to be careful not to bowl into them.
話しいたします。1998年5月末にアーケード版が
So we still have a few pieces left to destroy to get our full destruction bonus. The weak point is the very tip of the worm, where the turret is. But we still need to destroy the rest of the body here. So just being very careful with getting pink bullets and getting our hyper sword active.
だったりしたんですが、なんといってもですね、チェーンボーナスがステージクリアやミスでもリセットされずに、ボーナスの上限がなかった。
I think all that's left is just the head. It looks like every other piece has been destroyed, so we're just going to just try and end the fight.
何が起こったのかと言いますとですね、
Because this is a very difficult fight to get good grazing off of, and we would probably rather just destroy it as soon as possible.
残機が2桁まで増えたり。
It is a good source of points, though. So here's the final phase where it starts coming down.
ゲームとなっておりまして、ファンの間では幻のバージョンと言われております。
まあ開発ですからね。
まあそうです。
大事ですよ。やっぱこう修正かかるとはね。
まあはい。でここでボスが下に行くので、この壊れてしまったパーツにもソードを当ててウェポンボーナスを取りに行きます。
Like thankfully we are farming some weapon points as well. Since we're getting the weapon bonus from having the sword out, so we can get just a few extra points while we're waiting for the worm to get back in place.
でボスから撃っているこの青いレーザーっぽいのですね、結構判定が残ってやっぱ事故りやすいです。
見た目以上に残りますよね。
そう、見た目以上に。
Ino's positioning for all of these spread shots is really good, and just making sure we have enough openings to be able to dodge through. Because there's like this conception for a lot of shmups that you need like lightning fast reflexes to be able to like play these games well. It's actually the opposite. This is actually the kind of genre where if you're playing at a high level, everything is very particularly routed, and you actually want to make very, very small micro adjustments instead of just shooting across the screen as fast as possible. So everything's very carefully planned.
Right, the
ダメージ
precision.
調整をしております。
And then nerves
こ
of
の前出てくるのが3回。
The thing I do not have with playing these games.
これが合図みたいな形です。
I love my shmups, but I'm not good at most of them. It's a tough genre to be good at.
ウェポンボーナスも取りましたね。ではこの後に自爆する
So we're
の
going
で
to farm a little bit off of these missile trails while we can.
倒しましたね。お見事です。
Wrap up the fight there. So that's the end of 4C. So 2 sections left to go in stage 4.
はい。では4の D の解説に入ります。
The next boss is actually going to be pretty interesting to think about because we're going to see a whole bunch of stuff that we're supposed to see casually, but we don't here. So we're going to get our secret bonus here. We're just going to maintain yellow chain all the way to the end.
黄色のみを生き端に行ってます。これでシークレットチェーンをずっと稼げる。
Very, very precise swipes to make sure we don't get the hyper sword too early. Because otherwise we would not be able to do these little tiny taps.
間違えするんですよね。
はい。
はい。なのでしっかりこう分かっててもできないとかたまにあったりするんです。
決まりま
Get
した
the rest of them and get the last secret chain. It's very good.
黄色1体残るのを
Alright, so this is the penta fight right here. So story-wise,
では嫁
you are on the Tetra, and this is the counterpart. This is the Penta that gets taken over. The reason why this is relevant is because the Penta actually has 2 Silverguns inside of it, and the Silverguns actually have modified versions of the weapons you normally have. So we're actually going to see several attacks that we haven't gotten to see in this run at all.
そうなんです。ソードプレイだともう常に密着してソードを振らないと間に合わないんですね。第2形態に移った時にちょっとパーツがあるとちょっともう
So first phase is pretty simple, but the Silvergun should be coming out right now after this engine blows up.
はい。でこちらなんですが、
So they go in a very specific order in terms of how they spawn. So I think we're going to start with the Vulcan. We're going to start with all of the single tap attacks first. So the Vulcan, the homing, and the spread. And then we're going to start seeing the combination attacks. But we want to try and kill this boss before too much happens because some of these attacks are pretty difficult to manage.
うまく避けれるか、そこで避
So
け
we'll graze for a handful of points here and there, but this is a very difficult fight to manage here. You know, doing a great job dodging the homing.
次は C スプレッドです。爆発するタイミングはランダムになります。
So spread attack right here. So these detonate at certain points. And I think next is the lightning attack. So whenever you cross these beams, the lightning shoots out. So managing the lightning plus the spinning turret is a little tricky to manage. And then next is the backshot Vulcan, which is more of like a spread in the case for a constant for boss fight. And then we have the homing laser next. So these need to lock on, and these do linger, so they're a bit dangerous. And then finally, just like your Silvergun, they also have swords. So the sword phase is up next, but we're actually just gonna finish the fight before we see the swords. And that's good because they also have hyper swords that they can use, which cover the same amount of space. So don't want to see that. So we're gonna get our 100% and finish before it's the problem. Alright, so this is the last part of stage 4 right here in 4E. So we're gonna stick with reds for the beginning here. A lot of red turrets up ahead. Gonna hold on to a hyper for just a bit, so we're gonna be dragging the sword for a little bit and make sure we get still can attack things. That's very precise right there to be able to destroy those without getting trapped by the boxes. Because the moment you destroy the enemies, the boxes close. Very good positioning there. Grazing off the laser right here for a little bit more points. And then it's going to be more box climbing right here, and these are going to be required to progress, so it's going to be just very careful, sliding right through. Red chain's been maintained just fine so far, and this run right here is worth a bunch of points. Very nice precise dodges there. We're going to actually ditch our hyper swords so we can do more taps. Very, very precise here to get these. So the yellow enemies actually have like shields up, so they don't have active hitboxes, so we can farm the reds and ignore the blues. So we actually maxed out at 100,000 chains, and we're just getting a whole bunch of points right here, destroying all the reds. So yeah, farming this boss is very much worth it. So this is actually one of the few times where it's very, very, very detrimental to die because you're maintaining these 100k chains. And dying would reset that. Hey, really showing that positioning right there, just inching down pixel by pixel to avoid. So we're gonna get a few more points grazing off the wall as we head into the boss fight here. So this is the last boss fight in stage 4. Like I said, this has been a long level. Like this stage has been about 20 minutes. It's a very long stage.
I'm now looking at the instructions since you mentioned them. My favorite one from this past one is Hold Oneself. My favorite one from the last one was Fight for Truth.
There's some good ones, but I can't even remember like what my favorite one is. I think some of my more favorite ones were in stage 2, which we skipped in this run, so I do recommend checking those out. There's some good sites that have a lot of info about this game. And like I said, this game is now very easily accessible to an English-speaking audience thanks to digital re-releases, so I do highly recommend checking this out if it interests you in any way. So we're still maintaining that red chain from earlier, so we can still get the colored parts of the turrets that are coming out, so farming's still very important here. Doing a great job farming up for Hyper Sword as well.
8箇所ありますよね。
そうです。いやにしても赤出ないですね。
出ないですね。
こっ これはちょっとひどい。
なんかかえって赤を黄色シークレットの方がいいんじゃないかぐらいもうなんか
Yeah, the bullets aren't a problem, but watching for the flame hitboxes is, so, you know, being very careful to just kind of stay away. And just kind of swat away the bullets instead. So I think there's not too many more engine pieces that we need to destroy to get 100% completion here. It looks like we got our secret bonus, so it looks like we're going to try and finish up the fight by just killing the core. Because it looks like we're all fresh out of turrets to kill. Or we could farm some yellows. So yeah, it looks like we're maintaining the secret bonus just a little longer. We'll take that secret chain with the yellows. But otherwise, we're just going to do core cleanup.
Really has a killer soundtrack, too.
壊しましたね
Oh, it's fantastic. And the nice thing about the soundtrack is that it uses a lot of the same things, same themes, but iterated over and over in different ways. So getting a 90% destruction rate, so we're missing out on some points from the destruction rate, but that's fine. We got through okay. So that is the end of stage 4, which is by far the longest stage we'll see. Every stage from here on out is just one section. Alright, so stage 5A right here, we have this intro section, and then it's mostly just going to be a big battleship boss fight. So we're going to just maintain these red chains for a bit. Might get a secret chain at the very end of it. Nope, we're just going to keep red. So this is our fight right here, just this giant battleship, the SBS 130.
はい特徴がですね必ず
Like I said, since we're playing arcade mode instead of the Saturn original mode, this is the only part level we will not see 5B in this run.
って書いてあるんですよ何の歌でしょうねというわけで続いていきますが、このね赤黄色青っていう順番に雑魚敵が1チェーンずつ出てくるんですけど、これを倒しつつ
This is some really good projectile management right here, while still maintaining these red chains.
しながら倒していきますで最後のとこれが最後なんでしっかりハイパーソード
So
で
still have all of our reds maxing out at 75k.
入るので確実に1個は壊したいところですねで最後いいですね
青っぽく見えますが、あれは無属
So
性
we just hit level 27 on our sword, so our sword's doing pretty much as much damage as it possibly can. Like, we can get a few more levels on it. We'll cap at 33, but this is pretty much as good as it gets.
赤砲台を倒して左側にいる赤が処理できるか
But there are just tons and tons of chains to get in this level, and so even though we'd want to get rid of the bosses, like, to be safe, Ino is really good at just playing for score and just doing really unsafe things. Unfortunately, getting rammed by the piece of the ship, so the chain resets here. So it looks like we're gonna still maintain red chain and try and get that back up.
新しい敵が出てくるというシステムになっていますでこの砲台の動きランダムです、砲台の撃つ角度ランダムです、動きがこれランダムなので
It's very funny that your hitbox is small enough to be able to like graze on the side of the turrets next to the walls without blowing yourself up. That's an incredibly precise hitbox.
あと弾が来ないでくれって思いますね
まあそうですねで今左側に黄色が出ましたここで赤が出
I like
始
how
め
these
ま
turrets
す
look like little crabs.
これが今2セット目
They really
の
do.
砲台ですね
Yeah, like, enemy designs in treasure games are always like so
赤だけ切っていきます
outlandish in the best way possible.
赤を取りつつ壁についてる赤砲台も取りに行きたい
Alright, so we're gonna farm a little bit more. Like I said, this boss is the only part of the stage, and the moment we kill the core, the stage is over. So once we get as many like high value chains as we can, we're just gonna end it.
ここでまた下から2列やってきます
はい繰り返しですね
はいでここで大技が決まるか
You know, doing a really good job with these slashes too. These are really precise slashes to not accidentally chain the other enemies and lose out. We did miss out on one. Yeah, that hitbox is hilarious. You were like literally inside of the walls.
ここで赤を処理していきますいや黄色がいる黄色がこっちに来た
I think that's an intentional treasure thing because like Ikaruga does the same where you can like slip through very thin walls even though it doesn't look like you have space.
いやけど重なってるそうですね このステージです
So I
ね
think this is the last phase we're going to do right here, where everything's spinning around. It's a little more difficult to manage, especially with all the walls in the way.
100万とか2200稼ぐことができます。なんとこれ、全体のスコアの約5割になります。
おかしくないですか？
おかしいです。で、それがよくシルバーガンってパターンゲーと言われるんですが、このステージに限ってはパターンじゃないです。
無理です、無理です。
アドリブ力、あと経験。
Yeah, this adds another attack into the mix right here, where you have the missile, the giant missile sliding by on the wall that doesn't close. So really constricts your movement here. So be very careful to maneuver bullets in a way where they're not going to be trapped. The nice thing is that that giant missile conveniently acts as like an enemy reset by killing everything else that was in the path. So
この砲台はちょっと取れないか。
混ざってる。
混ざってますね。
unfortunate having to take another death right there. But we are maxed out on our leveling. So we are at level 33. This is the max level for your weapons. So this is the sword's doing as much damage as it possibly can.
回転しているところでまた赤を取りに行きます。でここでまた、両方の壁が閉ま
So
りま
not
す。
relevant for this run, but something of note if you're playing this casually is that you can new game plus these your weapon levels and carry those into future playthroughs, which is a fun casual thing to do. It can be very satisfying to go back to stage 3 and just blow everything up with level 33 weapons.
これダメだ。
いや取れないですね。
This is the very end of the fight right here. So we're just gonna end it out. So that's the end of stage 5 right there.
やっぱり本番怖いですね。
そうですね。
And like I said, since we are playing in arcade mode, there's no 5B. We're just going to go straight into stage 6, which is also quite a bit shortened in arcade mode. Normally this would be like
そうですね。
5 or 6 boss fights. We're just going to go straight to the final boss fight of stage 6,
6はですね、ステージがありません。ボスだけになります。
which I think is like conceptually the coolest fight. This is Ziga.
どっかで見たことあるかもしれませんが、気にしないでください。
はい。
This giant polygon man.
出るんで、
I was gonna say,
はい、名前出ますね。
we fought like a worm and we fought some ships, and now we're gonna fight some guy.
出ましたね。サイガですね
Ultraman?。
この当時、
Yeah, Ultraman.
ちょっと
Be
その前
prepared.
ティガっていうのが
So this fight is several phases. So we have several life bars to deal with, and all have really unique ways of dealing with them. Watch out for that kick, by the way. That can kill you.
ではどうぞ。はい。
Storyline wise, we can talk about it just briefly because these phases are pretty self-explanatory. Basically, the whole world had already been destroyed. We didn't see the flashback from stage 2, but pretty much the world ended. And then I believe 2 years later, when your ship's supplies start to run out, you try and come back to Earth to salvage what you can. But the stone-like that we had dug out has still enacted control over everything
難しいですね。
and has destroyed basically all of our remaining allies. So we are alone. The Silverguns trying to destroy the stone-like.
でここで
So note the year that the year is, I believe, 2523. That is relevant for the next stage after this.
で次にレーザー撃って蹴り
So
が
this fight is really deceptive because what has collision, what doesn't, can be a little tricky. And Polygon Man has a lot more collision than you expect, so it's very difficult to actually move around.
そんなにね、慣れてしまえばっていうところ。
そうですね。最初やるともう絶対混乱するんですね。
そう、めっちゃパニックになります。
So finishing up this phase real quick, want to do a little bit more grazing here.
全部判定あるんで、さっきみたいに当たらないだろうと思ったら当たれちゃうんで、それだけは間違えないようにしてもらって。
It's amazing, like the lengths that we'll go to get like literally like 50 points at a time. Like that's how precise things can be here.
速攻で倒しに行きます。
So this is a good place to farm up a hyper sword and just do a whole bunch of damage just having the sword out. So we can just quickly end that phase. Didn't get another hyper sword, but this is the final phase coming up. So basically the stone-like becomes the heart and it drops crystals down, and as you damage it more and more, the crystals get faster and closer, and there's an occasional spark that comes down. So this is incredibly difficult as health gets lower and lower. Ino doing a great job. And that is the end of stage 6. Great fight overall. So this is going to be the last stage coming up. This is stage 1. Because when we took out this last part of the stone like, it's going to try and pull us into a time warp. And we are going to go back to, I believe, is 100,000 BC. If I remember right, we'll see on the screen here. Yeah, so 100,000 BC. So this is stage 1. This is the very beginning of the timeline for the game. So this is unlike any other part. If any of you have played the end of Ikaruga, you'll be familiar with this. All we do is survive for 60 seconds. Just in complete silence, which is unfortunate because if you play the original Saturn mode, you get more story, voice clips, and music here. But it's just survive for 60 seconds, so we're just going to graze for 30 seconds here. It's just some very precise maneuvering. And we're just going to squeeze out as many points as we can. And now we just have some just heartbeat sparks. Just 3 waves of this. And that is going to be the end of the run. Oh, getting one last death, unfortunately. But we can just graze those last ones. And that's time right there.
100 yen. What was that? 300 yen.
So to finish out the story, the stone like self-detonates and kind of takes us as we try and escape. It's a very complicated story to think about, but basically this is a game, especially with Ikaruga being the spiritual sequel, this is kind of like a cycle of rebirth, so we've basically rebooted the timeline, and we will see what happens in the future.
It's gorgeous credits. Oh my gosh.
They are nice. So these are actually just stills. If you were to play in the Saturn mode, you would actually see full anime cutscenes here. And you would see cutscenes in other places. So this is a really neat cutscene to see played out. But the stills are also very nicely picked to kind of give you an idea of the story. Anyways, that is going to be it for me. Thank you all for having me for commentary for Rating Silvergun. This is a really, really neat shmup. Definitely a very unique shmup, and as Treasure games usually are. But Sporadic, I will hand it off to you to finish out for the day, and I'm going to go to bed.
Yeah, do you have any shout-outs you'd like to do before you go? Where can people find you?
I don't have anything. You can find me at twitch.tv/ZELLLOO. That's 3 L's and 3 O's if you find me. I mostly do music games and some other speedruns, but it's a toss-up. But thank y'all again for having me.
Thank you so much. Well, everybody, don't go anywhere. There is a very exciting window kill any percent race coming right up. We will be right back.
もう天の上のような存在の方々というのはたくさんいますので、そういった方々もですね、ぜひこういった機会にね、参加表明していただいて、やっていただければ、ゲームの映像だけじゃなくて、プレイヤー本人の映像も残していただければいいなと、私はちょっと切に願っております。以上です。
はい、ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
SH のなんかありますよ。
いやもう本当一発勝負ですごいものを見させていただきました。私もちょっと実はこのゲームのスコアアタックをやってみようかと応募する気はあったんですが、ちょっと上位勢があまりにもすごすぎるので、まだまだ私の方はちょっと練習不足というところで、そうですね。今いつかは狙ってみようかなとは思っています。本当にありがとうございます。
はい。というわけでですね、レイダーのシルバーガンの、タイムは以上になります。皆さんご視聴ありがとうございました。引き続きアルディンジャパンサマー2025をお楽しみください。それでは。はい、